Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our council meeting this afternoon. I call the meeting to order at 1 p.m. and we'll look to our agenda. I hope everybody had a chance to review the agenda package that was sent out. First of all, is there any added items to the agenda? Seeing none, move on to item B, adoption of the agenda. After reviewing the agenda, does everybody okay with the agenda? Shake head, yes? Yes, okay. Through consensus then, we'll adopt the agenda. Moving down to item number 2, adoption of the previous minutes. So we have 2 sets of minutes that we need to approve here, the regular council minutes from October 14th. We'll look at first. Any errors or omissions? Anybody seen? Being that this was our last council meeting of our last term, so none? All right, through consensus then, do I have approval of those minutes? Yep, okay, those are passed. And then looking at the minutes from the organizational meeting minutes of October 27th, 2025. If we had a chance to review those, is there any corrections or omissions or anything? Everybody good with them? Yep. Okay, so we'll pass those as well. All right, moving down to item number 3, bylaws. Bylaw 2025-18, land use bylaw 2025-14 amendment. And I'll turn it over to CAO Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. So as council might be aware, first readings for land use bylaw amendments generally aren't discussed at length, as the opportunity for both staff to present and the public to be heard generally set in and around the public hearing, which is proposed for November 24th. So, but I'm just going to give a primer for new councillors on what's before you today and that process. So as you would probably remember, the land use bylaw was totally rewritten and passed just last month. So you may be asking yourself, why does it need to be amended already? And that's a fair question. We have 3 pieces in this first reading. 2 are matters of clarity that were omitted from the main document. One involves our height variations between land use districts, just trying to get better clarity. What we call the step down, step up approach was supposed to be for residential areas only, but we believe the way it's worded, it may capture all zoning areas. So for example, the Ramada Hotel and the Shell gas station, they are not quite the same height, but does anyone care? Not so much. So we want to make sure that's clear. The other thing is a definition around lower use green space impacts, which was something in the previous land use bylaw we felt could be better specified through a definition as opposed to where it currently is within the broader bylaw. And the second thing was actually a new development, our new issue we're dealing with, and that is the location and use of some gates we consider outside of, I guess, planning's approval mechanism. So development permits are issued for, let's say, new garages, and we have an expectation through the design that the gate's going to be fronted onto a road when in fact it is fronted onto a public green space, hypothetically, but not so hypothetically. So those are the 3 of the example things that we're trying to deal with in first reading here. But generally, you won't hear from me during these presentations. Kyle Sloan, our land use planner, will be the one speaking to you on November 24th, should you choose to pass it. But just wanted to give council kind of the logistical overview of the why and how of first readings. But with that, Mayor Daley, hopefully that's a sufficient of introduction. But if you have any procedural questions or process questions, now's the time to ask those. We don't get into the crux of it until second reading in the public hearing.
Thank you, CEO Williams. So with that, is there any questions on what CEO Williams has presented here this morning? Other than that, we'll leave the rest of the question until the second and third reading. Any questions? No. Councillor Wilson?
I was just going to make the motion. Thanks, Mayor Daley. I make the motion that bylaw number 2025-18, amendment to the land use bylaw 2025-14 be given first reading as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I'll ask the question then. All those in favor? Motion is passed. Moving on to the second one then, second motion. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Mayor Daley. I move that Monday, November 24th, 2025 at 1 p.m. in council chambers to be set as the date, time, and place for the public hearing of bylaw number 2025-18.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? Motion is passed unanimously. Thank you. All right, moving down to item number 4, which is delegations. I'll leave the introduction to CAO Williams for our RCMP quarterly report.
Thank you very much again, Mayor Daley, and no longer acting Staff Sergeant for the Olds Detachment. We have Staff Sergeant Jamie Day, the permanent Staff Sergeant for our Olds Detachment. And 1 second, Jamie, I'll bring you a microphone.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to officially be provided the position for Staff Sergeant here in Olds. It's been a little bit of a journey waiting to find out in limbo. Am I going back to Three Hills? Am I staying here? So my family and I are very, very excited to police your community. I've been acting here since April 2025, and I got to know some of the crimes that happen in your community throughout the area, Mountain View County, Bowden, those places, and really impressed with the work that the members have done in this attachment to help keep your crime down. Looking at the crime numbers overall each quarter, I'm just trying to vary on where crime seems to be trending so we can focus on that. This time of year, our area is no different than most areas. I've been a detachment commander for 12 years, so it's not the first time to run a detachment for me. Copper wires always seems to be a big trend for us to deal with. So, you know, the rural areas are not shocked to see this time of year for this type of crime to happen. I can tell you that we are proactively investigating areas to reduce that copper wire theft. We're also attending meetings with different companies to address what they can do as well to help us reduce that crime trend. Some of the areas that we're finding with that crime trend is they're not reporting it. So a lot of times it'll go non-reported. And if they are reporting it, they're reporting it the next day. So it's really hard for us to fight that type of crime when we don't know what's happening. Southern Alberta District does have crime analysts that we can tap into that can help us kind of track those type of crimes and where they're going to expect it to happen next. And then we can use strategies with that. I won't get into detail with some items that we utilize to help us kind of hope that they will take, and then we can kind of track them that way. So the crime reduction member is very proactive. He does help out other communities as well, not as much. He focuses more on the town of Olds. But I can tell you, just seeing the numbers and looking at the stats that reported in this quarter, crime trends are trending down, which is good to see across the board. One area that I do see here is mischief, which would be other. That's more of probably your crimes that were being reported with SCAN got involved in that residence. So we'd see a spike in that area. You went from 10 in 2024 to 24 in 2025. So a little bit of a spike there. Again, not much damage. It's more of obstructed enjoyment of property. So somebody's is in their home. They want to enjoy their home, but their neighbor's causing problems, playing loud music, that kind of stuff. So again, not really intense crime, but still you're interfering with somebody's livelihood. So I'm going to say a lot of those calls, just by looking at the stats, came from that residence that was currently shut down. And when you look at these numbers, I will say, make sure you don't look at the percentage, because we could go 0 1 year and go 3 1 year, and it'll show you a 300% increase. There's not a crime problem, I promise you that. What I look for is look for the year prior or the 5-year trend. Look at those numbers when you're trying to look at where we are for tens of certain crime trends. The percentages will not lead you in the right direction. You'll always say, wow, there's a 600% increase. Well, we had 6 calls. Is that really a crime trend? In my opinion, no. And I see that across the board everywhere I've gone and spoke with council. The one area that I do want to focus on is mental health. And we do have come a long way when it comes to mental health from when I first started as a police officer. In 2024, you had 26 calls. In 2025, you had 43. So you do see a 54% increase there in that trend. So what I had the members do here is that when we find we go to a call that there's any sort of information that we're able to obtain that this person is going down a slope of mental health crisis, but we're unable to do what's called a Form 10 apprehension, we'll do what's called an RPAC referral. And that's when a regular member will come with a psych nurse, and then they'll actually make a door knock. It's not a phone call. It's not remotely. They actually will come and attend that residence to speak with the individual. And in my service, what I've known by doing that is in other detachments that I've served, we've seen the calls of service come down because the psych nurse will actually come in and do a plan with the individual. That if they're before they have a crisis, let's fix this before it happens. And so far, what I'm seeing with the RPAC teams, we've been very successful in trending those calls for services down by helping them get the help that they can get. You're always going to have the one-off that they don't want to talk to them. They're going to do their own thing. And unfortunately, sometimes they go down an area that we've tried to help them, but now they're in a crisis. Then we get a call to service to help it with that individual. But overall, with the RPAC team, I've seen a very successful rate in reduction of call for service with mental health, just by having them show up to your area and speak with these individuals. Other crime trends, like I said, looking at your crime stats in general, I don't see anything alarming that I can see that comes to mind. Even your assaults, you went from 19 to 10. I mean, that's pretty low. And if you did notice, I did this for a reason on the report, on the updates for violence in relationships. I wanted you to take note on that we had 14 calls for service. 2 of those, somebody was charged criminally. And then obviously the other 12. The idea of hitting home to this is we over-report domestic violence. So you may say you have a domestic violence problem in your community. I promise you, you don't. We just overly report on domestic violence. And I'll give you a couple examples. A couple separates. One lives in Calgary, one lives in Olds. Okay, it's time for the one partner to come to Olds to pick up the child. They're late. They call police. They're upset because the individual has not met them at a certain time, even though they are coming. They weren't trying to keep the child from the individual. They are coming to meet them, but they're late. It sets the other individual off. They phone 911. We will classify that as domestic violence. Did anybody get hurt in that category? No, right? Well-being check. There may have been a relationship that fell apart, and again, they live separately. They both might live in the town of Olds, and the other individual was curious that, I wonder how that my ex-partner is doing. They call it for a well-being check. We show up to do a well-being check. We'll classify it as domestic violence. So these aren't critical domestic violences, but we score everything that's any disharmony to a relationship. And trust me when I tell you, I've looked at our policy, anything is disharmony. So if there's a fight over property that somebody took a vehicle and the other person felt they were entitled to it, we're going to classify that as domestic violence. Even though it's going to be scored as a well-being check or whatever, on the breakdown that you see for domestic violence, spousal abuse, you'll see from 10 and then from 2024, and you'll see 19 over this reporting period. Not a lot of those were instances somebody was charged. It's just not that we're over-reporting, we're overly cautious when it comes to, are these people about to have an incident that's going to escalate, so we want to be on top of it. And by doing that, we have policy in place that even though nothing happened, we will go through strict questions with the individual that called to make sure, like, was there a problem in the household? Do they call you all the time? We will go through those type of questions to make sure nothing is escalating. So we overscore these more so for us, just so if we see a trend, then we'll say, okay, this ex-couple seems to be trending up. There's a high likelihood that there may be offense happen, or someone may do something that they're going to regret. So if that makes sense. So that's why I put in there just a note that noticed that 2 individuals, so 2 calls that we went to, somebody was charged. If that makes sense. With that, I mean, you have an opportunity to look at the stats. I don't see a lot of issues with your stats. I think it's a pretty safe place to live, in my opinion. Just by looking at the crime stats, I can tell you the members are very proactive. The Facebook page has been a great hit. I think we're up to 600 some followers now on our Facebook page. This month is Domestic Violence Month. I reported information on domestic violence where people have access to that information. And we'll continue to do that with our Facebook page. So far, everywhere I've gone, the Coffee with a Cop, crime prevention walks, I got good feedback on those activities. And I promise you the two areas that I focus on that I've always had my priority on are crime prevention and community policing. To me, they go hand in hand. And it's very important that your community knows who we are and that they feel safe to come talk to us and that we're approachable. That's something that I've always focused on from day one, that we're at community events, that we're engaging with our public. With that, that's what I have.
Thank you very much for that report. It's very informative. Is there any questions, comments from council to Staff Sergeant? Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Mayor Daly, and through you to Sergeant Jamie Day. I have a question about the Coffee with a Cop. 600 followers on Facebook, that's great. Was there any other avenues that are used to reach out to people to make sure that they know about this Coffee with a Cop event?
Facebooks, we use that quite a bit as our main way of getting information out there. But we will, when I did the crime prevention walks in the summertime and in the fall, we went to local businesses so they knew as well if they wanted a way to contact us. But I found doing those walks was a great initiative. I don't take credit for that initiative. It's a great initiative that they come up with. And I found we had great feedback with local businesses in your community that they were able to get that one-on-one time with us. But we also learned information too. Do they have cameras, right? What are they set up for crime prevention, to give them tips and those type of things. But so far it's been good.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Wilson. Oh,
Thanks, and congratulations,
Thank you.
Staff Sergeant Day, on your confirmation of your appointment. Good to have the continuity. I'll take us a little different direction off of the stat sheets and the reporting and everything. In the last little while, we've had a couple high-profile police interventions in our community with a residential house and an arrest, I think, at a motel. But just wondering, a two-pronged question, can you peel back the curtain a bit on those events, in particular the residential, the property, and how that all works from the perspective of SCAN engagement? And you mentioned we do have our crime reduction officer. So how that process works, I've had a couple questions from local residents, again, about SCAN, how we get involved. Is there a red hotline that we pick up that call when we need to engage with them? And then just the timing. And so without going into a lot of police tactics and investigation and protocol, residents in that area see, observe criminal activity, bold activity, brazen activity, but yet the investigation and the culmination of the investigation takes time. Can you help shed a little bit of light on what that process looks like?
Absolutely. These investigations aren't what I call our easier ones. There's a lot of moving parts that come into play. We want to make sure that obviously everything is well documented. And that we meet a lot of the elements of the offense that are occurring. Because sometimes we go to calls and we know there's something going on, but we don't have the evidence to support it. So then we do different tactics that I won't get into to try to monitor and investigate with the best ability that we have with information, Crime Stoppers tips, those kind of things that do come in. But it's a lengthy process. And the reason why I say that is nothing against the court system, but the court system, they're not going to take someone out of their home very easily. So when we want to make sure that we add that information to our investigation, we want to make sure that over a period of time that we have documented, we've dotted our I's, crossed our T's, to make sure that when we present to remove someone from the residence, that we're going to be successful. Because if we're not successful, then there's going to be backlash possibility on people that are making complaints, because word does get out there. They're talking back and forth. So we want to make sure that those things are in place before we even present it to the courts. And that's where SCAN comes into play. So once we believe we have the information that we are able to proceed and that we're going to be likely successful with this case, we will then call in SCAN. They have some things that they have to do as well too to meet their criteria, but they piggyback off of what we have. So basically, we provide our full investigation, if it's 1 year, if it's 6 months, if it's 2 years, we provide that with them so they are able to go to the court, present the case to a judge, to even get it to proceed to the next step. So when it does get accepted, then we have to go to the homeowner, then obviously give them notice, because you just can't take them out of the residence right away. There's usually a period of time. And then what prolongs this is that I think in this case, they actually asked for an extension, which the judge granted. And then that now prolongs the removal of the resident. So in this case, with all the evidence was overwhelming to be successful of collecting that data, collecting that information, doing those projects, doing those type of investigations that led us to be successful at the end of the day. But even though we're successful in court, we have to wait now for the court to do its thing, right? Because it could extend twice, it could extend multiple times. And I think they only received one extension from my understanding. And once that came, then we were able to get in place with SCAN and then obviously have them evacuate the building and then close off that building. And then obviously there's strict guidelines of going back into that property. And there's things in place that we know if someone goes back on that property. So without getting into too much detail, it's definitely a lengthy investigation, but I can tell you the courts don't take it easily. I mean, you look at the Landlord Tenant Act, very difficult for the landlord. And I've had that multiple times in my career. It's not easy to get the court to remove somebody from residence, and this is the exact same thing. So we were making sure that because we knew it was such a problem residence, that we were going to have all the information we needed to be successful on that first appearance. You're welcome.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Overwater, please.
Thank you, Mayor Daly, sorry. Your restorative justice juvenile program, is there much uptake on that? Or do we have many incidents of that at all?
I don't recall having, since I've been here, I don't recall a lot of incidents with the restorative justice program. There is one in place. I haven't seen it utilized since I've been here. But we are also working with, there's a fetal alcohol syndrome in Red Deer that I do meet with quarterly. So any individuals that do have any sort of disability to tie into that program. So it's fairly new. So I do meet them quarterly. So if there's a criteria that meets their category that we'll go into. So I don't see any so far that we have that meet that criteria. But they're adamant they want to come and they want to see our list, and then and so we're working with them to try to find if there's anybody out there that has a disability in that area. They focus on that to try to provide help, and they have a different avenue that they go down. But restorative justice, and since I've been here in April, I haven't seen it used.
Go ahead.
Supplemental, thank you, Mayor Daly. Okay, am I maybe not wording this correctly? So if you have a juvenile that is not necessarily mentally
Okay.
challenged, and they've done something, victimized somebody else, that's kind of where I'm talking about.
Yep.
So are we talking about the same thing?
No, I'm addressing that, yes. Like, we have very little. Like, I haven't heard of any come through since then. But I'm also watching the other side of disability when it comes to crime, types of crime as well. So we've opened that avenue because we have such a low caseload from what I'm seeing when it comes to restorative justice, that we said that we're willing to work with this other provincial agency that's going to come in and help on this side as well for youth. Okay.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Daly, and through you to the staff sergeant. Just your report contained the examples of the community policing. You referenced the crime prevention walks and the coffee with a cop and the Facebook following and so on. Just wondering, can you remind me? I'm just thinking in the context of further engagement and town halls. And have we had any town halls within Olds from the RCMP perspective recently, lately, and what your thoughts are on that approach?
Not since I've been here. But in my experience, town halls, nobody shows up. And to me, it's good direction and good thought. But I get it. People finish work; they want to go home to their families. I've done them online. I've done them in person, and it's never been a great turnout. There just seems to be no appetite for it. And that's why we're trying to find different ways of avenues of reporting our things and reporting types of crimes, and the Facebook page, the Coffee with a Cop, and trying to engage that way community events. And we find we're more successful actually at community events engaging with people. People are more willing to come up and speak with us. And like I said, even online, I did a Microsoft Teams one a few years back, and I think I had 13 people, and I think that was the highest I've ever seen. In person, I think you're lucky if you have 5 show up. So I just don't think there's an appetite for it.
Councillor Overwater?
Thank you, Mayor Daley. Do we still have the community resource officer that goes around to the different schools?
No.
Have I missed that somewhere?
No, we
We
don't.
don't have that anymore?
That position, from my understanding, was in play, and then it was changed to the Royal Crime position.
I think that's a good position,
I-
in my opinion.
I agree with you.
I like that position because then you go into the schools and these, you know, whether it's the elementary school or the middle school, those kids, you know, let's face it, they do things too that
Mhm.
they probably shouldn't. And then if they have a feeling that they can come to you and you could be their friend
Mhm.
to help, you know, discuss whatever's going on. I
And-
think that was a great program. It's
And,
too
and
bad
I
it's
agree
not
with you.
there.
It's a great program, and I think you're seeing it become more popular and popular as the last few years. But I can tell you that we do have amazing officers that still go into the school. So it's not that we just went away from the school. You know, Constable Gabriel is one name I keep hearing all the time. You know, coach volleyball. Myself, you know, when I do transition over here and I move, very active in the community. I coach girls baseball since 2017. So I do see members that are still doing that. Is it to the extent that the position had? No, of course, but we're still there. Okay. Yes.
Councillor Taylor?
Thanks, Mayor Daley, and through you to Jamie Day. Just a quick question, just to educate me a bit here on the fraud point here. Just want to make some kind of distinction between, is there 24 instances of local fraud, or are we talking about
That's
people a world away phone scamming people? Just kind of wondering if that's more
Yeah, it's
something local,
all
or
types of fraud. Yeah.
and that kind of gets bundled into the same bucket.
Same bucket. Yeah.
Do you have any kind of idea of how much of that is a world away phone fraud and how much of that is
I would say a lot.
yeah?
A lot of it is. Yeah. I'd say the majority is overseas somewhere.
Okay.
That's happening. They're doing, and the frustrating part is I've done a lot of fraud talks because I try to go to the most vulnerable, which seniors usually gets targeted quite a bit. So I've done a lot of talks in my career in seniors lodges, and I actually partnered with another agency in Red Deer that actually volunteered to come here and do fraud talks and provide them information on types of frauds. And the frustrating part for me, anyway, I'll speak and I'll go in for an hour and I'll speak about different types of fraud, and we'll go through all the categories. And within an hour, I have someone at my front reporting a fraud. So the biggest thing is you try and educate the families, you know, and stuff as well. And a lot of time I find a lot of these happen, not all of them, but they happen because the senior is lonely. Maybe family's not visiting enough. And a lot of times they want someone to talk to and somebody will phone. So I try to go in and give those experiences and those conversations with seniors when I can. So far, I'm still waiting for a call back from a couple senior lodges here that I've tried to get into to have those conversations. I just haven't heard back from them yet. I'm trying to get in and do some presentations and just try to educate them.
Go ahead.
Thanks. With the advent, unfortunately, of deep fakes and neural nets, all sorts of ways to impersonate people, is there anything that is being done to help educate or help keep people from being defrauded in that way?
Facebook page again, we try to share information on that, but not everybody's obviously using social media. But again, the other way is trying to get in and refer people to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. They're providing stuff all the time. They're online as well. So we will use them as an avenue as well to help educate community on that. And then basically just trying to have talks wherever we can if we feel there's a big increase in that, and then trying to find if there's an appetite that we can go in somewhere and have a discussion. It's just getting people to show up. I've even done fraud talks at Senior Lodge. I worked in an LDP in Oyen, and just having people come in and try and have conversations. Again, sometimes you see 5 people show up, right? So you try and try and try, but I can't make people come to some of these, right? So it can be frustrating for sure on our part.
Thank you. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to Staff Sergeant day. So going along a little further with that, those fraud talks and such, and it's great you go into seniors' homes and things. Do you also provide information to some of our local retail stores and our financial institutions? Because typically, if someone is being frauded, they will go to do a Western Union transaction or go buy gift cards or something like that, and not everybody's always alerted that this could be the potential for some fraud. So is there any information or any education you provide to those businesses in town to make them also aware of this potential?
So, so in my experience, they're very much aware.
Okay.
They're the ones that are usually paying the bill at the end of the day when it comes to how the fraud has transpired. The one downfall, they won't let us put anything in the bank, so you can't hang anything up. So we do work with them quite closely, but they're very, very much aware that I'll give you one quick example. An individual, not here, but in Three Hills, went and he was going on a trip, and he took out like $3,000. And then the next day he showed up again to take out $3,000, and it triggered the bank teller to be like, no, I need to call police. And what we found out was is that he was taking money to pay somebody because there was a grandparent scam. And these individuals are getting braver and braver and braver. They actually showed up to his doorstep and took money from him and said they would be back. So we set up something. I won't get into details to try and apprehend the individual, but we're assuming that they obviously got afraid to come back. They didn't return. But thankfully, he was able to, because the bank teller was quick to get on it. So they're very, very educated as well, too, in that area. So, yeah, we do work well with them.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Church?
Thank you, Mayor Daly, and through you to Staff Sergeant. I did have a question about the human resources overview on your report.
Okay.
So 11 established positions for regular members, working 9, 2 on special leave. Does that mean we're short 2 officers currently?
Yes.
That we should have?
So you have two on special leave.
And then again, another 2 off of detachment support.
That's correct.
So that's almost like 25% of the whole detachment is on leave. Is that pretty standard for a detachment of our size?
I would say your detachment is probably in pretty good shape when it comes to the number that's on leave. You know, without going into detail, it's hard. We don't get obviously a lot of information about these types of leave, but they are on special leaves. I see other detachments with a lot more shape than what Olds is. I would even go and say my last attachment, we were probably looking at the number again, we were definitely probably higher percentage, and we only had 6 of us, right? So there are detachments that are doing are in a lot more difficult position with the number of policing resources due to special leaves. With one of those regular member leaves, it's a regular leave, so they're going to be coming back. It's not like we don't know they're gone for how long. They're going to come back. They're entitled to that leave due to the factor of why they're on that leave. I just don't want to get into the personal details.
No, of course.
But you would have all those same rights that individual had. So it's pretty normal leave that the individual's on.
And those spots aren't filled to cover leave like a mat leave would be filled?
No, so what they won't do is they won't get into what we call double bunking. So if the position is filled by a regular member and that person is on a special leave, they won't call what's double bunk, put someone in that position as well to fulfill that. They'll wait till that person either comes back, or if they don't come back, then until they fill that position.
Is there a ratio that would trigger some sort of emergency that says, hey, we're supposed to have 11 officers, but we're down to 5?
So a lot of times it'd be a lot more. We have to go a lot more lower before we trigger that.
Really?
We're not even close to in that realm of triggering emergency. But where we would is when on call would start to increase, and then we'd start seeing resourcing deplete. So then you weren't having the minimal number of members on shift and those type of things. If that started to be impactful, then we would say, okay, we have a problem. We need to start bringing people in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Thank you very much for your presentation today. Lots of information, lots of stuff to think on. And on behalf of myself and the rest of the council, congratulations on your placement here in Olds. We look forward to working with you. And
as do I. Listen, I really appreciate that I was given the opportunity to police your community, and I promise you that it'll be my primary focus. But I will say now that I'm in the position, I didn't want to say it before, but actually Brent Williams, I've actually known him for quite some time. He's actually from a good part of the world like I am, back in Nova Scotia.
Oh,
So actually in Cape Breton of all places, we're not that far from each other. But I've had the opportunity to work with him over the years, and I'm saying this because I truly mean it. He's one of the I've policed a lot of detachments, and I can tell you he's definitely one of my favorite CAOs. So when I got over here and I heard Brent was over here, I was really excited to work with him again. Because one of my 2 posts again when he moved on, it was really sad to see him go. And I've told you over the past, I've really appreciated his partnership. And another individual, Justin, I can't speak. Since I've been over here in April, he has made me feel more welcome. He does an incredible job managing our facility over there at the Tri-Facility Building. I cannot tell you all the individuals I met over my career, all the different players involved. These 2 individuals, absolutely incredible individuals to work with. So I'm very thankful for them. Thank you very much.
well, thank you for that. And again, congratulations and thank you for your report. All right. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I move that council accepts the Royal Canadian Mounted Police quarterly report as presented and thank Staff Sergeant Day again.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz. I asked the question. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to item 4B, Community Service Quarterly Report. CAO Williams for your introduction.
Thank you again, Mayor Daley. Director Lapointe is to my right, and he'll be leading us through this Q3 report for community services.
Thanks for having me this afternoon. So we're going to start off with the Community Development Department. You'll notice from the stats that we have up front here, the information referrals were down slightly, but partnerships and connections continue to grow. I thought I might give a little bit of context on each of these items since it's the first time through for a few folks as well. Information referrals are instances where FCSS staff connect residents with community supports or agencies, whereas partnerships, on the other hand, involve formal or informal collaborations to deliver programs and services. So an example of that would be this past quarter, there was some joint programming between FCSS and the CLC and BGC, helping both partners to reduce their delivery costs. The demand for subsidized services remains strong. These programs operate as you would expect. FCSS contracts a provider. The resident pays a fee, and the town covers part of the cost to improve accessibility to that service. We're also continuing to see strong use of Jean's Place at the Community Connection Center, which remains free for local groups and agencies to book. So there's a space in the Community Connection Center that groups can access. Next slide. This one is pretty self-explanatory. Everybody understands cemeteries, but the cemetery sales have remained steady throughout the year, and Q3 was no exception. The Sunshine Bus continues to experience growth. Ridership increased by 8% year over year this quarter, despite the limited capacity of the vehicle. And again, for those of you who don't know, that vehicle only has 4 seats. You may recall the social prescribing grant I mentioned previously. The total funding you see on this slide is spread over 3 years, supporting a temporary position. There is potential for this funding to be extended if the program successfully meets its stated objectives. So for the time being, that is just a 3-year period that we're seeing. The summer camp program launched this year, laying a strong foundation for future expansion. And the new storefront beautification program helps support revitalization efforts in the Uptown Olds area. In Q4, the community development team will focus on Olds Fashion Christmas event, sponsorship development, and launching the social prescribing program. Before I continue, are there any questions on community development?
Councillor Kurt.
What were some of the criteria that made it so that the 20 businesses that did apply for
that Mountain View Power grant that made it so that they were unsuccessful?
The guidelines were posted online. Ultimately, there are only a certain amount of improvements that are acceptable. Again, it has to be to your facade at this point. And you take into consideration impact to the downtown core. Again, the amount of investment that the business is putting forward themselves. And ultimately, we've left it to a group of their peers to make those decisions. So it wasn't a decision that was made by the town. It was a group of downtown businesses that actually adjudicated the process.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daly, and through you to Director Lapointe. Along that lines too, we had discussed briefly when this was first, recommended to council, this grant program. Are we going to expand it outside of Uptown Olds? We did talk about that initially, to say that we could maybe expand it to some of the other businesses. Have we started to consider that yet, or we're just going to leave it as is for this time being and just focus strictly on the Uptown Olds core?
If there was a will from council to pursue an expanded scope, absolutely. What I will say is I believe there was 20 applications, if I remember correctly. 7 of them were approved. So the demand was there already in Uptown Olds. If there was further expansion, I would expect that we'd have to have additional dollars to put forward at this point.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor and then Councillor Overwater.
Thanks, Mayor Daly, and through you to Director Lapointe. Just on the Sunshine Bus, really happy to see that it's seeing increased usage. Can you just educate me a bit on the process for transporting somebody with a wheelchair? I understand that there's a little bit more involved in that. And also just set me straight on how many seats there is. I've heard 3, but I've heard 4 now. Thanks.
Again, it's a very manual process for taking somebody that's in a wheelchair. I think we can actually accommodate up to 4 people, but you'd have to leave the seat in, I think, is the situation. I'm not sure if it happens that frequently. I think oftentimes we just work with the 3 and leave the space in case we are going to accommodate a wheelchair because it is quite an onerous process. So for the most part, if we did have to remove that seat, we'd want to have lots of advance notice. But we're managing that process right now by just allowing the 3 seats into the space at this point. And we're not finding that we can't keep up with the demand at this point.
Thank you. Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daly. To Director Lapointe, you talk about subsidized housekeeping, light services for seniors. What really is that? What does that mean?
Exactly as it sounds. I think you have to qualify. It's income-based at this point. And then if you apply, you'll actually get some housekeeping into your facility. And they pay the fee, the resident does. But it's a subsidized fee, so a portion of the cost is billed back to the FCSS themselves as well to make the program go.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Blatz?
Yeah, Mayor Daly, and back through you to Director Lapointe. Going back to the Sunshine Bus there a little bit, I know that we've got money recently for a transportation study grant. Would that be included to potentially look at a bigger bus? Is that going to be under the scope of that grant money study, or is this something that, Community Services already looking at, that obviously the more ridership we get, the bigger the bus we're going to need? And I'm quite surprised that it only seats 4 or 3 at best. So I just want to know if that's going to be part of that study.
Absolutely. I think that is probably the easiest step to take moving forward if you wanted to expand the transit services, just to increase the capacity of the bus. So at a minimum, I think that's what that study will look at. But again, it's looking at a couple other options as triggers as to, other ways that we could provide service within the community. But that would be the base level that they would be looking at.
Thank you. And of course, through our conversations in the last few months, we have heard of the need of a community bus now that the Legion bus has now gone out of commission. And so I look forward to seeing what the study comes up with as far as answers for community transportation as well. So, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to the director, just to go back to the storefront beautification or updating of the storefront. Can you give us a bit of a teaser for 2026? I assume that intake will be opening sometime early in 2026, and is there thought, any early discussion around increasing the amount of funds available? Or should we just wait and hang tight?
I guess the answer is the earlier the better. If we receive applications as quickly as we did this year with very little notification, I would expect that we'll see the demand to be there again. As a teaser, yes, we would like to put forward a few more dollars. Of course, this is provided through MVP at this point. So we'd look to increase the dollars a little bit, knowing that that demand is there.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments for Director Lapointe?
Mayor Daley, just one comment. I will have a report on the storefront beautification grant program for our next meeting, December.
And that would include examples of what has been done in the past and completed projects and stuff. That would be great. Thank you. All right, continue on then. Thank you very much.
Parks and Recreation is what you see in front of you now at this point. The Aquatic Center saw modest overall growth that you can see on the visit side of things. Really, the notable increase here is in private rentals and swim lessons. As for the Sportsplex, utilization was strong, particularly as both the BGC and the town summer camps utilized the facility. For any of the older counselors that were here previously, you'll notice a change in the utilization rate presentation. In my mind, this is due to more of an accurate approach to reporting. Previously, Q3 would have appeared as 98% capacity as opposed to the 49% capacity that you're seeing at this point. That number reflected bookings per time slot across the two ice surfaces rather than per ice surface. So essentially, we are only using half of the space according to what we have here at this point. So the revised format going forward will show a clearer picture and more realistic utilization picture for you for sure. What you see before you now is the top 10 tasks completed by parks this quarter. Sports field maintenance, weed whipping, tree pruning, and playground surface repair all received increased attention. In some cases, we hadn't done this work before, as the team reallocated time savings towards these areas. Highlights from this quarter include high-efficiency window replacement and sauna installation at the pool, arrival of the new Ice Bear Zamboni at the Sportsplex. That was an 18-month delay before we received that, and the introduction of a new playground replacement plan that was approved just in September. Looking ahead to quarter four, we'll be bringing forward recommendations for 2026 rates and ramping up work on the ODR improvements and sponsorship promotion. So that's it for Parks and Recreation. Are there any questions on that front?
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to Director Lapointe. Yep, very happy to see doubling of the usage, the hours rented. Is there anything that you can attribute to that increase? Is there some unseen reason why that's spiking up so much recently?
I'm assuming you're talking about the Sportsplex.
That's correct, yes. The Sportsplex going from 600 to 1,200 hours rented.
And ultimately, that is the two camps that we saw in that space, the BGC and the town run programming at this point, which will be a strategy that we use on a go-forward basis is perhaps town-led programming to fill in some of the gaps that we see ourselves. We don't want to have staff in place. It would be more sort of a contracted purpose, but we want to identify where there are gaps potentially where we could fill in those gaps ourselves.
Thank you. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to Director Lapointe. Going to the aquatic center there, I just wanted to share a compliment that I had in regards to what we called our senior swim and the increased hours that we did do. I understand that it's fairly well utilized time slot, and they're very appreciative that they've been provided that time and space. So I wanted to share that compliment with you. And hopefully this program will continue on and even grow bigger in numbers. So
Good, thank you very much. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Daly, and through you to the director. Just, if you happen to know off the top, like, again, I'm back to the Sportsplex and the utilization there, so certainly trending the right way. But I assume, are you able to speak to, like, from Friday afternoon or Friday evening until, like, Sunday evening? Are we kind of maxing out on the utilization of the Sportsplex, which is what you would expect for weekend-type activity and obviously weekday day activity to drag our numbers down? But our weekends, are we satisfied at the point we're at relative to utilization? Can you speak to that? Thanks.
Q3 is kind of an interesting one because it straddles 2 seasons for us at this point, right? I would say, the last 6 weeks we're busy. Well, there are some gaps in the schedule, believe it or not, that would land on the weekends as well. So that's something that we're working on too, is identifying some of these gaps maybe 2 weeks in advance and trying to reach out to user groups to see if we can fill those gaps as well. The summer trend was good, but I would say that, again, most of that is probably a Monday to Friday usage. When the lacrosse ends in June, the evenings and weekends tend to dip right off for us.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? All right, Director Lapointe, carry on.
And lastly, we have communications. We continue to see steady growth across all major social media platforms. I think that just continues on to the next page. Key takeaway here is that the number of communication channels we're managing is rather large. To simplify and strengthen messaging, we're beginning to consolidate some of these channels, starting with the Sportsplex and the Aquatic Center, which will now operate as one. And that would be the Olds recreation profile that we're launching here as well. The Amplifier, our new e-newsletter, continues to perform very well, achieving open rates well above industry averages. And we launched a new website. It was launched successfully, and we're noticing some interesting new user trends already. If you look at the numbers that are up there at this point, the homepage visits are actually down, which is new for us. We haven't really seen that in the past. But all the other numbers are up, which means that I think people are finding us through direct search or through social media searches or email. So direct links are becoming a way for us to connect with people at this point, which is an interesting new trend, and I would also believe a positive sign of engagement as well. The team was focused on the online video format for the Olds marketing plan and building a strong base for the Voyant subscribers. And on a go-forward basis, on that final slide, we'll continue to seek improvements in processes for council communications and continue the work on the marketing plan and Voyant promotion. With that, I'm open to any questions on communications.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Councillor Blatz.
thank you, Mayor Daly, and through you again to Director Lapointe. Going back to your community page, I understand that that's really driven by community groups contacting us and asking to advertise. So, are we sending out regular notifications or through our Facebook page or anything else that this is available for maybe those who don't know? I know there's a couple of other places. I believe the radio station also has a community page, and I'm not sure about the chamber, but at one point in time they did have. So, we're pushing this out as much as we possibly can. I understand we're at near capacity for the ability of our communications group as it is, and with all of the different platforms they're already monitoring, I'm sure that they are definitely at near capacity. So just a question.
Absolutely. I think we do try to make people aware via social. I think face-to-face as well, through community development, they'll make people aware that this is a tool that's available to them as well. An area that we can continue to focus on, though, I would agree.
Thank you. Any other final comments or questions? All right, thank you very much, Director Lapointe. Lots of information there as well. Appreciate all the work that your team is doing going forward, and it's great to see the upward trends happening with our facilities and the work that your team is doing. So thank you for that. I'll ask for the question now then, please. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I make the motion that council accepts the Community Services Quarterly Report as presented for information.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Ask for the question. All those in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you again. Have a great day. All right, so we move down to item number 5, business special council meeting, special council meetings. Turn it over to CEO Williams for introduction.
Thank you once again, Mayor Daley, and this is fairly straightforward. Administration is proposing 2 special council meetings back to back, one on the evening of the 25th of November and one on the 26th, all day. So projecting 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. on the 25th and probably 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. on the 26th for the introduction and discussion deliberation of the 2026 operating and capital budgets.
Good, thank you very much. Any questions, discussion? Council? No? All right, I ask for a motion then. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Mayor Daley. I move that council hold a special council meeting in the council chambers at the town office 3501 70th Ave, Olds, Alberta, on Tuesday, November 25th, 2025 at 5 p.m. to consider the 2025 operating and capital budgets.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Yes, Legislative Clerk?
It should be 2026, so just a friendly amendment there, Councillor Taylor, if you don't mind. It's a typo on our end, so.
Absolutely.
And
So the amendment should read to consider the 2026 operating and capital budgets. Friendly amendment. Okay, everybody on board with that? Ben? I'm sorry, Councillor Church? So I asked the question then, all those in favor? Passed unanimously, thank you. And for the next motion now, Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. That I move that council hold a special council meeting in the council chambers at the town office 3501 70th Avenue, Olds, Alberta, on Wednesday, November 26, 2025 at 10 a.m. to consider the 2026 operating and capital budgets.
Perfect, thank you very much, Councillor Overwater. Okay, any discussion? Okay, call for the vote. All those in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on now to item 5B, Mount View County appointments. Page 53. CEO Williams for introduction.
Thank you once again, Mayor Daley. So as per various agreements, the Mountain View County does appoint 1 member to the Olds Municipal Library Board and 1 member to Council's Economic Development Action Committee. As with previous years, Councillor Jennifer Lutz from the local area has been designated by County Council. So this is just Town of Olds Council affirming that appointment to each board.
Thank you for that. Any discussions or questions? Okay, I ask for a motion then. Councillor Church.
I move that the council appoints Councillor Jennifer Lutz to the Olds Municipal Library Board for a term of 1 year starting October 27, 2025 and expiring October 26, 2026.
Thank you, Councillor Krush. Any questions or comments? All right, ask the question. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Next motion, please. Councillor Cook.
I move that council appoints Councillor Jennifer Lutz to the Economic Development Action Committee for a term of 1 year, starting October 27th, 2025, and expiring on October 26th, 2026.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Councillor Blatz? Okay, passed unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, that takes us to item 5C, Alberta Municipalities 2025 Convention Resolution Review. Turn it over to CAO Williams for commentary on this.
And thank you again. So the RFP before you is just to receive this for information, because that's all it's for especially the new councillors. Every year at the Alberta Municipalities Convention, there are a number, usually 20 plus, of member-initiated resolutions that seek to direct the organization to lobby the provincial or federal governments on. Each individual councillor gets a vote on each resolution, so you don't have to achieve unanimity here. This is just an opportunity to review administration's opinion on the recommendations, on the resolutions on the floor, and ask any questions for clarity. Now, unfortunately, we forgot to include our sheet in the council package, which was self-defeating in a way, but it's before you right now, and it was sent over the weekend if you had a chance. But I believe there are maybe a bit fewer than I've seen in recent years, still a hefty amount. There's nothing I would argue that's controversial. The difficulty is Alberta Municipalities is a very broad organization. Put it over 200 municipalities of varying, from the city of Calgary to the village of Rainbow Lake, for example. So not all the asks are totally pertinent with the town our size. And that's where you as individuals, and not necessarily as a council, when you're voting, you have to understand, there's only so much pie to be eaten, and is this part of the pie you're going to help lobby for with your individual vote? And that's only something you can adjudicate. The only particular instance is that the previous council of the town of Olds did second a motion, a resolution from the city of Red Deer regarding lobbying the federal government on municipalities' exclusion from the federal carbon tax. Now, the carbon tax has been zeroed out, but not totally eliminated, so the city of Red Deer felt it's still prudent to keep it on the resolution books, and you'll see it in here as well. We won't have to necessarily speak to it. That will be the city of Red Deer's job, but to be good neighbors and how the resolution process works, council decided to support them. So I had not too much to add. I don't recommend you go through these in detail. It will get boring really quick. But if you had any questions on what's contained within, discuss and debate.
Thank you, CAO Williams. Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daly, to CAO Williams. On the one that we're seconding on page 93 of our agendas, it doesn't have Olds as carbon pricing in there. Should we not have it in there if we're seconding the motion? Like,
I just don't believe, sorry, through you, Mayor Daly, I just don't believe we were asked when they gathered it, so that's taken from the background that was submitted. Red Deer, I believe, asked more municipalities in the mid-sized cities caucus, which the list seems to be. I don't have, I do believe we have calculated, I just don't have it handy though, so. They did the legwork before they found the seconder, I believe, is the logistics, or the order it happened in.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a good question, and I believe it did happen in that order, and that they put together the resolution before they contacted us to be the seconder. So it's just the way the process was laid out. So, Councillor Overwater.
yeah, just to comment to that, it's funny that we would do a seconder. Why they wouldn't get somebody that has their numbers here to second them, but that's okay. It's just a comment. I don't need.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Daly, if I may. So I should have mentioned this too. I'm actually on the committee that sets these rules with Alberta municipalities. Last year, during when people are building the resolutions, the procedure changed of how you can get resolutions coming to the floor. So there is a newer formula within the last year plus where a city has to get a town and vice versa, like, or municipalities of different scope to support or second the resolution. The logic, so city of Red Deer, town of Olds, at the town of Olds, we'd have to get, say, a village or a city to support our resolution. And the idea there was to have more broad appeal to those resolutions because, again, in those conferences, some of you may recall when we had 40 resolutions on the floor, some of them got pretty opaque pretty fast, very niche interests. So that was one of the efforts. But it just changed fairly recently too.
Yes, and some of the, just to bring the council's attention as well, some of the timelines for the presentation and the voting has changed as well. So I believe the discussion is limited to 5 minutes now. The presentation is 90 seconds, I believe, for the person that's making the motion for resolution, and also the time to vote is also been reduced. So when we're in the resolution section of the conference coming up, be ready. Things are going to move along quite a bit quicker than they did in past conferences as well. Sometimes it was up to 20 minutes, half an hour taken for discussion, and everybody was commenting several times on the same point. And so just for everybody's information, that be ready, have your app set up and your voting credentials set up and be ready to go. It's going to move along quite a bit quicker. So any further discussion on resolutions? Is there any questions anybody might have about any of them? Councillor Kirsch.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. Through you to CAO Williams. I couldn't help but notice that the recommendation was support for every resolution. Is that pretty typical, or is it just that happens this year that you happen to like all of the resolutions?
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Chair, like is a strong word. I would say administration's cognizant not to take a political stance, which a lot of these are. Because we say support, I think what that also means is that it doesn't adversely affect our interests. Personally speaking, as your CAO, I think there are way too many requests for a very finite pot of money, and some of these requests are very specific to that municipality or a certain zone of the province, and you can ascertain, your own interpretation. So if I were advising you individually, which I don't have to, on my own personal opinion, yeah, I wouldn't vote for most of these, just because it doesn't directly impact our interests, but in the spirit of camaraderie, in the spirit of being good neighbors or municipal colleagues, you may see that differently. But administration, to answer your question, we seek to keep as politically neutral lens as possible. That if it doesn't adversely affect us, then I think supporting it is still the recommendation. But I encourage you to read them closely and maybe put on the provincial lens as you hear the rationale for them.
Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. And to just expand a little bit on what CEO Williams said, quite often too, when we get into the discussion period and whatever's presented either for pros or cons or for or against, sometimes you can change your mind just because a recommendation comes forward to support it as the reasons CEO Williams has stated. You can just vote against it if you feel that the argument against a particular resolution was warranted. So your voting is, anonymous. So.
Yeah, and to go along with that also, thank you, Councillor Blatz, for that clarification. That, it's you got to pick your battles and which ones you're going to support and which ones you aren't. As CEO Williams has mentioned, there's only a finite amount of resources to go around for all these resolutions, and so as we've heard before, a lot of these resolutions sit on the books for years before being looked at just because of that resource allocation. So use your own personal discretion on what you feel strongly about and what is maybe something that you're not that strongly motivated towards. Yeah. Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. Just another comment too, is that there is a day where there's a bear pit where most of the ministers are still there. And you have an opportunity to go up to the mic and voice your opinions. And I know we've voiced our opinion before about transportation, where a lot of the big cities, that they're the ones that get all the money for transportation, whether it's for their LRTs and so and so. Whereas smaller communities like ourselves, I'm a very big proponent of it, that we should get a piece of that pie. It should not all go to the big city. So, you know, if there's an opportunity to talk to Minister of Transportation, I would be voicing that opinion to them. So you do have an opportunity to make some comments in the bear pit.
Thank you, Councillor Overwater. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. And just my brief comment, it's, you know, we're all well-informed people around the table here. And certainly people don't have the misconception. The AB Munis in the resolution process is not the Willy Wonka golden chocolate bar, right? We all are aware the province is up their deficit projection, 1.3 billion to now 6.5 billion. And in my mind, there is only really one resolution that matters, and that's the fact that AB Munis has been saying for several years all municipalities need $1 billion of additional funding. But certainly make no mistakes, and when you look at the scorecard for AB Munis, many of their resolutions have the intent not met. So the provincial government and their caucus and their cabinet will certainly do what they want to do, regardless of what AB Munis requests.
Yes, good comments. Any further questions or comments on this? All right, can I get a motion then for this, please? Councillor Taylor?
Thanks, Mayor Daley. I move that Council accepts for information the Alberta Municipalities 2025 Fall Resolutions Report as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Any further discussion? All right, ask the question. All those in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you. All right, takes us to correspondence, section 6, page 100. C.O. Williams, would you like to do any commentary?
I think if I recommend we put the motion on the floor first, and I have just one comment to make, but I think that's how we generally do things.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I'll make the motion that the correspondence and information report ending November 10th, 2025 be received for information.
Thank you. All right, discussion, C.O. Williams?
Thank you. Not to jump the queue, I see a few hands going up here, but there is one letter from the Minister of Health that we had a fairly prompt response from a request from the previous council just in early October, I believe. And that is not it. But anyways, oh, here it is. So the question was around a 2023 announcement about a dialysis construction at the Olds Hospital that administration was made aware of through what was then AHS Central Zone. So clarity on that was sought from the minister. And since that time, this letter has confirmed that the $21 million for the standalone dialysis unit is underway in late stages planning. In discussions with what has replaced Central Zone AHS, I can't recall the exact department, 2030 is the projected completion date for that project. Now, 5 years to the untrained observer may seem like a long time, but in government, that's warp speed. So 2030 for that. And in addition, in conversations with Central Zone, there has also been a second proposal submitted that is not yet funded, capital proposal for the Olds Hospital to expand surgical operations. You can see that term referenced in the minister's letter here. And speaking with local healthcare providers and those affiliated with the Olds Hospital, the surgical operations, the acute care bed issue, those are the the largest issues compared to, say, dialysis. Now, there's reasons why dialysis was chosen first, because it is a different pot of money, different management within the healthcare regime in the province of Alberta. But I think as an advocacy item for council, it is part of your approved list right now, which I sent you out earlier today. But the Olds Hospital, adding that surgical operations enhancement and trying to get more support for what is already, as I understand it, a submitted proposal from these surgical leaders within primary and preventative care services, the new ministry. So overall, it's good news that the $21 million is still proceeding, that there is support from the bureaucracy that is, formerly was AHS, to see another capital expansion go ahead to improve surgical operations. Not great news on the Rural Remote Northern program, as the program has been under perpetual review, and again, it's our opinion a very disadvantageous program to the town of Olds and medical professionals practicing here. But good news overall, and I think it's a topic for another day for council to discuss how you approach healthcare advocacy in the town, and working with our partners like the Health Fundraising Committee and the Attraction and Retention Committee as well. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Williams. Discussion, Councillor Taylor, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Daly, and through you to CEO Williams. Hopefully you'll be able to, this is treading old ground, but just to maybe reiterate how much legal force and power there is behind this notice of default and imminent liability regarding the trespassing technology letter, just so that we can move past this. Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and this is, I believe, the third iteration or third time council has seen a letter like this come forward. To your question, Councillor Taylor, there's no risk to the town that I can see. We're not concerned with the verbiage in the letter is not written by a lawyer or a person with a legal background from a law school, I would say. So I do not see any risk. So.
Thank you. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daly, but Councillor Taylor actually asked the question I was going to ask. So just for clarity, because we had in the past seen two other these types of letters come through from the same group of individuals. So I just wanted to have clarification on that for the general viewing public.
Thank you. Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daly. It does say that that letter is submitted by an Emily K. Latimer, barrister and solicitor, notary public. What is that saying to us?
Yes, and through you, Mr. Chair. So that is just the lawyer who provided the notary, public notary stamp. And if you look on the date of the last three letters, it's on a Thursday. It so happens the same law firm offers complimentary notarization on Thursdays. So Ms. Latimer has no formal affiliation that I can tell with this group. It has been different lawyers throughout the time, I believe. So it's just more of the complimentary service provided by one of our exceptional local law firms.
Councillor Overwater.
Just another question. Thank Mayor Daly to CAO Williams. There's a letter here from Reeve Elbers, and it talks about us having a meeting with both councils December 20th, 26. Is that just a typo? Should it be December 20? It's on page 116. It says all council, both councils getting together after the general election by December 20th, 26. Is that correct?
And through you, Mayor Daly, it says within 2 months, so by December 20th, we need to hold a post-election orientation. Oh yeah, 25, sorry, yes.
Okay,
yes.
so that,
I believe it's a typo.
so that's just
sorry.
a typo, so we know we're doing something with that.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been in contact already, just trying to nail down a date, but we'll be in this calendar year.
Okay,
Yeah, sorry.
thanks.
Thank you for that. Any further comments from council on correspondence? Okay, I'd like to bring your attention to, of course, the Alberta Public Safety Emergency Response, item number B, in that we have been accepted, and they are waiting for our reply as when we set up our policing commission. So there's that, and then also on item G, the Central Alberta Economic Partnership letter. Bring your attention to that it has been identified to us that there is a 1-year waiting period before we can excuse ourselves from that partnership, and so we'll see how that plays out moving forward. Just in that, I believe it's January of 2027 is when the government ceases and desists with funding, I believe. I direct that towards CAO Williams.
April 1st is a more accurate date, yeah.
April 1st of 2027. So, yeah, we're March of 2027, I believe, is our last day according to the letter. So, we'll see how that plays out then. Okay, so moving forward, we will still have representation up from this council on that partnership up to that date. Other than that, I think everything else is pretty self-explanatory, right? So we have a motion, so I'll ask the question. Those in favor of the motion? Opposed, if any? None? So, passed unanimously. Thank you very much. So that moves us down to item 7, Chief Administrative Officer Report. C.O. Williams.
Thank you again. And the final item before closed session, just for information's sake, this is where I usually go over once a month the reporter problem stats for the organization and the council action item list. And then I could try to use it as a catch-all if something comes post-agenda deadline to discuss. But today I have just what's in the agenda and what will hopefully be a brief presentation to introduce the budget to council. But on the reporter problem data, we can see a year-over-year trend, but a general fall slowdown started to happen in October, which is not that uncommon when activities slow down with weather. And then between now and April, everything will be largely snow and ice dependent on how those numbers ebb and flow. And then there's nothing to report on the action item list, but this is where generally if there is a actionable motion that the CAO's office is responsible for, you see notice of motions, for example, on the list. I will put it here just for tracking's sake. And I'm always looking for ways to improve and expand this too. But for now, this is the best I could come up with. So council will see me periodically add items here as they are assigned to me to accomplish. So going forward to the budget introduction. And again, I won't take as much time as I probably could. Oh, intense. But I wanted to take the opportunity to do two things largely. And one is to provide a public venue for what you heard in orientation already of how we see our budget process playing out for this year, and then provide council with a little more information on how we're building the budget, how administration is building the draft budget for council consideration, and what you can expect once you get back from your convention season with these special meetings. So the tentative schedule right now, starting November 24th at the regular meeting, we're trying to keep that meeting fairly brief to have a more robust conversation to introduce the operating budget to council, which will take up most of the time. Director Lindeman will lead this, of course. Then we'll follow into capital on the 25th with operating capital scheduled for the 26th, a final budget deliberation on committee of the whole, and then what we hope is budget passage on December the 8th. I don't anticipate it taking all of this time. I believe this budget there's not many surprises outside of the lack of revenue, which is never a surprise, but we shall see. So to provide some context, so what goes into the budget prep? So there's three main things for budget 2026, and that's the budget survey that was completed over the summer and the fall, a council strategic plan, which this council will update in the new year, but we are still working with the existing one, and then the corporate and business planning efforts, and we have a couple things broken out in there. So from the budget survey, obviously there was a bunch of questions, but the three key takeaways I believe for this budget is going to be road maintenance, community safety, and infrastructure upgrading. So on the road maintenance piece, we're not asking council for more money for either snow clearing or asphalt repair, which were the priorities identified. We believe that through a bit more internal efficiency improvements, we can get traction with snow clearing and then measure whether more resources are needed, and by resources, largely funding through contracted services. Asphalt repair, I do believe that with the 2025 edition of an internal asphalt maintenance program, splitting that between contractor and in-house, we're seeing a lot of improvements. We are falling behind a bit on the contracted side due to lack of funds, but once our utility digs hopefully slow down, I do believe we are in a good spot to, after a few years, to see progress on our road repairs. Community safety, you'll see in our CMP decision paper, or project paper for the operating budget, to help get officers on the street more. And with the 2025 edition of the third CPO, we're seeing action on ancillary properties, which again was a budget priority. And infrastructure upgrading, as always, that is priorities number usually 1 through 5 for us, and it will continue in 2026. So from council strategic plan, 3 key takeaways, and nothing necessarily directed in budget, but how we try to build this, because with the last council and what I heard from this council, communication and engagement, sound governance, and fiscal stewardship, they seem to remain the key themes of what council wants to see and how it hopes to accomplish things. So mixed in with almost everything you'll see is us trying to, if not improve, at least pay homage to these items we're trying to accomplish. On the corporate plan and business planning, again, corporate plans approved by council, business plans are internal to each division. But largely there's 4 themes: infrastructure renewal, fiscal resilience, long-term planning, and I included asset management because I do believe for the first time ever, we will have the skeleton asset management framework to show council in relation to budget. And over the coming year to 3 years, a much more robust asset-based and costing approach to our annual operating and capital budgets. Benchmarking, this is something I went through with council already, but we go through it annually. It's not a strategy per se, but it's a good comparison, whether for our own internal metrics, but also for your communication piece, that similar towns have similar expenses and similar needs. So the towns closest to us in Alberta include Blackfalds, Morinville, Whitecourt, Taber, Edson, Innisfail. So similar rec facilities, similar kilometers of roads, wastewater, water systems. And we try to compare key financial data against that. And as you've seen before, we use benchmarking to both measure and communicate that when it comes to revenue and expenses, we see that based on 2024 data, Olds is collecting approximately $3 million less than our comparators, spending closer to $2 million less. And that difference is just because of our utilization of reserves for capital projects. And we lean more heavy on those than our comparators do. We spend less or in line in most major categories, with the 2 exceptions being on the small end, about a $300,000 difference or $400,000 difference in recreation, which includes parks and green spaces. The major winner is utilities, and we spend just about $2 million more than our comparator groups, and that's largely due to the water loss and inflow and infiltration in our sanitary system as well. Taxation and other revenue, again, we collect about $1.7 million less on average based on the 2024 data. But that's not to say we don't take a similar amount from people. When you can look at franchise fees revenue and user fees, like utilities, it balances out a bit more so with utility revenue. The problem is on the utility revenue, we're not keeping that money. That money is, again, being lost to water loss and sanitary I&I. Other taxes, for various reasons, our provincial education tax and our seniors tax requisition are significantly higher than our comparator groups. That means those costs get directly passed on to individual property tax bills in higher proportions than our like-sized communities. And as you'll find out, it doesn't necessarily matter how the property tax gets placed in the bill, you will get blamed for it. Staffing costs, always a popular conversation. As council's seen before, we are not overstaffed by any reasonable metric. It's apples to apples is a difficult comparison, but we obviously spend $2.5 million less based on the 2024 data, and my best estimate, probably 10 to 12 positions on average, fewer than our benchmarked group. Debt and reserves, we unfortunately win one race and lose the other. In fact, where our overall debt is still quite a bit higher than our benchmarked average, and our reserves are a fair amount lower than the benchmarked average. Performance measurement, another piece of the corporate plan. How are we going to judge if our financial efforts of this budget is a success? Again, these are early stages, a beta test, if you will, on how we track financial performance. But within the corporate plan, there's things around revenue growth, which hopes to meet a target of $1 million in additional revenue through various sources by 2030. On cost control, we're hoping to keep annual cost increases no more than 2% outside of things like inflation and service expansion. So, and that's where council will hopefully decide when you're expanding a service, you'll understand the broader implications of approving, let's say, a capital project. On tax rates, effective tax rate is essentially a simple arithmetic between tax rate and assessment. Then we do that comparison against each of our benchmark municipalities. We're hoping to, same thing, be in the 45th to 55th percentile, so about average effective tax rates. We are under that right now, as you've seen from the previous data. Also, debt management, we do want to reach around 30% debt utilization by 2031, pretty important for a long-term fiscal health. Reserve contributions, we won't be making net reserve contributions in 2026 based on my projections, but we do hope by next year, no matter how small it may be, we have net reserve contributions. So that essentially means planning to transfer from our 2027 budget into capital or operating reserves. And then facility cost recovery. We're hoping to achieve 30% across the board. So that's when you include sportsplex and aquatics, which are trending above 30%, to things like sports fields, which trend way under. We want to at least get to 30% on average. So that's kind of how we prepare the budget. We look at the issue, the plans, the data we have, and we start the foundation. Now, the issues are the things that kind of prevent us in a perfect world from building a budget we want to see. The trends are kind of how we track how we're solving those issues. So on the issue side, things we're facing this year, and you'll see in budget, well, 4 things, in fact, and 3 of them are not new to you. 1 will be a reminder for some, and one of those sounds for the rest of you. A water loss in I&I. It's still bad. Projecting $1.3 million loss in 2026. Again, this is working. We'll update this because we still have a month or so to go until we have confidence in our numbers. But things are getting better. We're seeing sustained decreases in both categories. We're just not sure how much we want to budget for those in 2026. Conservative versus optimistically. In case you don't know me by now, I am not. We're also getting new breaks and failures regularly. It's not just a deficit, but our system's breaking in real time, so we have to budget for that as best we can. And based on our CCTV project, which basically cameraed all 100 kilometers or so of our sanitary line, we know of 70 points we have to fix. That means digging up the road and replacing the pipe, and no matter how small, which that will take years to get to. So we know this is a long-term game, but our efforts are showing progress. Aging rec facilities. The Sportsplex is vintage by now, 1981. The Aquatic Center, we have the recency bias. People who've lived here for a long time think it's relatively new. In fact, it's approaching 25 years old. That's when a lot of things start to break, and we're seeing that as well. So with those increasing op and maintenance costs at all facilities, but certainly these two, people also often don't realize that cost recovery just doesn't exist at these facilities. When we just take what people pay to rent ice, or what minor hockey pays, or figure skating, or aquatic center drop-in, on the Sportsplex side, it costs $1.4 million in 2025 to run that facility, and we collect $430,000 from all user fees. So that's $1 million in other revenue, not just taxes. We use grants, and Mountain View County contributes to fund that. Aquatic Center, again, just under $1 million it takes after you deduct all the revenue you make from that facility. So right there, and so sorry, sports fields as well, that's even worse. So just those three things alone require $3 million of additional revenue. We only collect $11.5 million from taxes. So you can see how that starts to eat away pretty quickly before you even look at a road or a pipe or anything else, just recreation alone. And these things are investments in their own. I'm not trying to criticize this, but I don't think a lot of people recognize the cost of this business we run here. And it's never going to be cost neutral. Running things like a business, in some facets, for example, it works well, and you should be approaching it from that angle. Very few businesses would operate a pool or a rink in this fashion. So industrial tax base, that's a big issue in this year's budget. We have recovered as best we could from the loss of Sundial's tax revenue. What's throwing us for a loop still is the franchise fee revenue. Very unpredictable and much lower than it used to be. In recent years, we've been down six figures off in our projections. We're closer this year in terms of how both electricity and natural gas balance out. But based on Fortis and ATCO's combined projections for 2026, we had to revise the budget down by $90,000, the revenue budget. Very difficult to predict, but a very important source of revenue for the town. And this is the surprise one, ONET debenture. No surprise for some of you, this was a matter of public record just this spring. When ONET was sold, we took a $7.8 million loss, and we had to pay back, obviously, the money owed to Alberta Capital Finance Authority. That's $542,000 annually that we have to pay. Council in 2025, in the spring, decided to fund 50% of that through 2025 taxes. They directed administration to bring forward the remaining 50% revenue to 2026 budget. So this is ours to pay today. So in 2026 budget, it's not an option, by the way, we have to pay it. We'll start from a deficit of $270,000 because of the ONET debenture that's owed, half of the ONET debenture. The good news is two parts. Once we fund this, it will be fully funded. There won't be future increases on tax rates. This is the last mill rate increase we'll have to do because of ONET. And with the upcoming, what we call holdback releases, lump sum payments, and the refinancing we expect to do in December, we will see our annual payments be adjusted, but also that 2031 goal of eliminating the ONET debt and seeing other unrelated loans come off the books, and 2031 being that banner year for the town. On the trends piece, so again, these are the things we're seeing, how we're trying to tackle the issues with this budget. Four things I'll run over quickly. So our base budget, it's just a term we use to mean if we want to do exactly the same thing as last year. How much would it cost in this year? And we're in pretty good shape. We're projecting that without any new services added or new projects done, there's about a 0.5% variance between 2026 and 2025. It's still draft numbers, but obviously things like utility rates and general inflation do get you, but we think we can roughly operate the town status quo for that in a perfect world. But obviously it's not a perfect world. So staffing projections, again, common question you will get from citizens, and you'll have yourself, and things you'll see at budget. Employee compensation, just like the comparators we use for the benchmarking data, we expand the comparator group a bit more, but we every 2 years do a third-party compensation review, and where we try to meet the average for salaries across the board, whether it be the CAO or our arena attendants or parks operators. We try to meet 50th percentile, and that was completed this summer. You have been given a copy of that, and we were pretty close. We were within 2 to 3%, I believe, on most positions, which is the margin of error, and their adjustments have been made already in that base budget number you have seen. You will see a cost of living allowance project paper. This is an annual thing you get. Whether or not staff and council will be afforded a COLA increase. We use the Consumer Price Index from October to September. That's trending 2.14% right now. I believe they finalize those numbers later this month, but that's where you'll see right now. And proposed new FTE funding for 2026, you'll see project papers in the realm totaling $170,000. We'll be asking for new staffing positions, which is focused on our human resources function and in our utility operator function. On the growth side, housing strategy, we're seeing, as you can imagine, as you probably heard in the campaign trail, a lot of growth in town, and we're projecting that to continue with new projects in the pipe very frequently. Commercial growth, significant potential. We see both newer builds going up with new commercial square footage, but also new plans coming together. And one of the issues with large-scale commercial growth, it follows population. So we're still about 5 years out before we see the utilization of vacant commercial land, let's say, being significantly built on, but we're feeling good about our commercial growth prospects. Then the industrial sector, which is the largest area of focus for ECDEV and myself, we're focused heavily on the reutilization of the former Sundial site and the expansion of the Southeast Industrial Park. But revenue from growth, we won't see significant impacts for the next 3 to 5 years on our revenue base. So we can't depend on that to solve current problems. It is a midterm fix. And obviously, growth long-term combined with prudent financial planning, asset management, that we're in a good spot if we can get over this hump right now. Then you'll see with the capital budget, I don't want to belabor the operating side. We have total capital funding in about $2.5 million. And that's using all our reserve transfers, which we're recommending you do this year. But the total capital asks around $3.5 million. So obviously you're not going to be able to fund everything, but as you adjudicate the capital asks, also keep in mind that things not on there are the rest of the Sportsplex renewal, the fire apparatus replacement needs, and the North Water Reservoir replacement, which we'll all touch on in small detail, but the better we think long-term on our capital needs, I guess the more real the conversation will become. So to summarize this piece, and I have one piece left, I'm sorry to belabor and bore you a bit, but budget 2026, administration is building this budget for your consideration based on addressing water loss and I&I, infrastructure renewal, maintaining our reserves, not depleting. We don't want to take anything from our reserves outside of what's already budgeted to go into it. So we want to at least maintain the current reserves levels by this time next year, the end of 2026 fiscal. reducing debt. We're not planning on taking on any new debt in 2026. In fact, repaying it. And then based on the budget 2026 survey, road maintenance and community safety. But having a plan is key, and it's something we haven't had much luck with, but I do think council will see for the first time something that resembles a plan. And again, 2031 is that date I'm putting forward as, you know, things substantially improving from a fiscal standpoint. So with the upcoming budget meetings, you'll see a budget folder be built for you. In your teams, it will have a bunch of documents in there. Probably by the end of the week, you can expect that. The general ledger, which, well, it's missing an R, but it's ledger, not ledge. That's just our line by line budget, as it's called. It's about 4,000, 5,000 codes. We'll have a little legend there. That's obviously yours to look into, and if you have questions, let us know. The base budget will be in there too. We try to focus that around services as best we can. We're not fully there yet with our math and our ability to match services to budget costs, but that's where we have service level reviews as well. But the base budget is focused on the services we deliver via the costs it takes to deliver those services. Taxation, so in the corporate plan, there is a base recommendation that administration must bring forward to council the CPI tax increase recommendation, which is 2.1% for all intents and purposes right now, plus population growth. So we're averaging that right now just at 0.6%. So you can expect at least a tax revenue increase of 2.7% coming to you for consideration. But overall, we're seeing, based on our current budget projections, a revenue increase need of $400,000 to $500,000. And again, you factor in the ONET debenture, that takes up most of it. That's over 50% of the new revenue. Everything else comes into asset management, infrastructure, staffing, and operational needs as well. But we shall see how budget conversations go, commencing on November 24th. Utility rates, another key part of our budget. We're expecting, now we're part of 3 regional commissions, and we have essentially no control over the fees they charge us. But we have gotten general indications from most of these that we're expecting a modest decrease in solid waste services, the solid waste fees, sorry, a modest increase in wastewater fees, and a larger increase in water fees. So obviously those affect utility rates because we have to pass those rates on to the citizens. And then also we do, our utilities are cost recovery, so some of the projects you're going to be asked to approve have an effect on utility rates instead of taxes. But they all have to be taken as one. Franchise fees, right now administration is going to propose a 2.5% increase to the Fortis franchise fee for 2026. That will come before you later this month or in early December for consideration, and more information will be provided at that time. User fees, Director Lapointe mentioned November 24th, we'll introduce the draft rates bylaw and policy for 2026. That is everything from planning and development permit fees to aquatic center drop-in fees, et cetera, et cetera. And we're projecting a 2 to 3% increase across most rates. We try to do both a benchmarking and a CPI kind of comparison there of how we what we charge for pool drop-ins or ice time rentals. For operating project papers, obviously you have a list. You'll see 13, I think, operating project papers totaling just over $1 million in new spending proposed. And again, spoiler, you can't approve $1 million in new spending. It's not anticipated, but we feel it's important. You hear the needs that we believe the organization has, and then triage those needs as you see fit. But I do believe everything we're bringing to you is a need, not a want. But even your needs, you can't always afford them all at one time. So, and then capital, around the same number. Going to varying scale and cost, but there's as mentioned, about 3.8. I think that's actually closer to 3.5 now. I forgot to update the number in total capital spend for a $2.5 million revenue line item. So Same thing, if you want to keep your reserve level stable, you'll have to find $1 million in triage. But in summary, so budget 2026, there's no new services being proposed. Improving existing service levels. So with you'll see project papers for fire hydrants, water, wastewater repair. You'll see a couple around better data and decision making. A social needs assessment, for example, will be one, as will a service level costing exercise. You'll have to see if they're worthwhile exercises, as you will see utility rate model review. Someone maybe put that in there. Then renewing assets, that's, again, kind of the primary focus for us, taking care of what we already own. So, and for council, I think my unsolicited advice to you, as you approach budget 2026, instead of considering the dollars and cents or getting lost in the dollars, we focus on service level implications and whether or not the decisions you make now are going to have a put pressure or cost pressure onto the budget. So that's why, and you'll see our introduction to the budget on the 24th will be focused largely on those service levels, the key ones that the divisions provide. And each project paper you'll see, consider each individually, of course, but then, as number 3 says, assess them against the available resources, because they're all going to seem reasonable, and some more than others, but I do believe every single thing you'll hear from us is going to be a reasonable request individually, but taken together, you'll have to prioritize. Ask questions, and direction's always appreciated. It's just tough when you're drinking from the fire hose, especially the first time around the can. And yeah, and immediate needs and versus the long term. I think with that, we have another slide. I'm just going to stop there, though. That was way longer than I wanted to go. But I'm not sure if you had any questions from that or if it's just a data dump.
Thank you, CAO Williams. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Mayor Daly, and through CEO Williams. I'm a bit surprised to hear that there is a recommendation not to dip into any reserves. I'm to understand that these are piggy banks that are to be smashed in these dire times. Is that not the reason for these reserves? And just with also the understanding that getting past this hump, things look bright on the other end. Thanks.
Thank you for the question, and through the chair, you're correct. Reserves are largely used for trying times, hopefully more so used in strategic, planned out purposes. But I think the piggy bank has been utilized in recent years to such an extent. I wouldn't feel comfortable recommending further dipping into those at this time, both because, again, they're lower than they should be, and we do need to start looking at the midterm solution to rebuilding those, but also because we're making progress on mitigating our risks. 2 years ago, I was in a very different position, I think, mentally, about what I saw as the risks to our community through our water and wastewater system. We've made substantial progress, so I think we need to now put more emphasis on holding the line on, say, rebuilding reserves as opposed to spending them right now. But that, again, is a council decision. And you'll see a lot more information, unfortunately, on that will sway you both ways.
Good, thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Daly, and I'll be brief, but I should have mentioned it perhaps during the request for a decision relative to the special meeting, but acknowledge administration moving towards a late afternoon, early evening meeting for at least one of the budget sessions. That was, I know, one item I had heard through the campaign was the ability for people, our residents or citizens, to participate. So hats off to administration for hearing us that were on the campaign trail and certainly responding to that with the one meeting. We'll let the process play out because for me there's still potentially an opportunity once we nail down the budget what is that gonna look like in terms of communication? And we've all talked about communication and the role that we play and making it accessible for this residents and citizens. But certainly the starting point, a 5 o'clock meeting for part of the budget discussion. We'll see what that looks like as we go through the process and land on a budget. And I like all the measurables that we're introducing, and I recognize that it's gonna take time. Again, whether it's around revenue recovery on our various assets and our sport facilities and various targets. Because I think in 4 years' time, and might take a little bit longer, but in 4 years' time, that kind of a scorecard would be invaluable for our citizens to evaluate us as council and certainly administration. So I like that move for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any further comments, questions? Seeing none, then I ask for a motion. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I move that the Chief Administrative Officer's report be accepted for information.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz. Ask the question. All those in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, CA Williams, for the introduction and the work moving forward on our budget deliberations. At this time, we'll be moving into closed session. Can I get a motion to do that, please? Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I make the motion that at 2:55, council go into a closed session. Item 1, Access to Information Act, ATIA, Section 20, disclosure harmful to personal privacy, public at large applications.
You, Councillor Wilson. All those in favor? Unanimous. Motion is carried. Welcome back, everyone. Councillor Blatz has made the motion to come out of closed session at 3:09 p.m. And I'll ask Councillor Taylor to make the motion for Riser Report.
Thank you, Mayor Daly. I move that Robert Irwin be appointed to Central Alberta Economic Partnership as the business representative of the Town of Olds for a term of 1 year to expire October 26th, 2026.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Any discussion or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. And with that brings us to our adjournment, which I will look for consensus for adjournment. Everybody's good. So I adjourn the meeting at 3:09. Thank you, everyone, for participating, and have a great day.